y'all, it's Kimberly here. Thank you for coming to my channel. Well, I did my DNA test with Ancestry.com and I gave the results in the video before. And I just want to kind of expand on that. I also want to make a correction. There was a story I told about a Choctaw baby and mother and a relative, ancestral relative of mine, that the baby and the mother had drowned. I believe that I got that story wrong. I believe it was the father-in-law that drowned while crossing the river, because I started to think about it. Well, if the mother and the baby died, then there would be no lineage, producing my ancestors had the baby died, if you understand what I mean. And so I have to correct that. It was the father-in-law that drowned. That's a story that my grandmother had told me, and this was probably 40 years ago. I can't remember. I was very young when she told me about it. And it was very sad, and it used to make my mother cry. And my mom would say, "Oh, that's one of those sad stories, mother." And it really is. It's a really, really sad story. And the father-in-law drowned trying to cross the river to get to the family after they had been estranged for a little while over some issue, which I really can't remember. Oh gosh, I've lost more and more of my family history by not being able to remember the stories that my grandmother told me, and it just kills me, that I've lost a lot of, memories like that, because she has passed away, my mother's passed away, my dad has passed away, and all I have to go on is what I have been able to research in memories of stories. And most of I believe all my aunts and uncles have passed away. There were some that were living in, a couple of them that lived in states very far away, but I believe they would be well into their hundreds, so I think that they have already passed away. My mother had a lot of brothers and sisters. She had, I believe, 6 or 7. They had a large family. And so that story, I just wanted to correct it, because when I started thinking about it, I was like, well, how did the bloodline pass down if the baby died? So that story is one of many that my grandmother told me. And one time she told a whole bunch of stories, and I had recorded it on a cassette recorder. And then as a stupid teenager, I recorded like Joan Jett or something over those stories, and I kick myself every day. I think about that, and it just kills me, that I did that. Well, and since I was not able to prove that link, the Choctaw link, one of the reasons why I thought that I believed it so much is because it was a story that my grandmother told, and that it was constantly said that we were part Choctaw and possibly Seminole Indian. And I did find names that were on there's the Dawes Roll, DAWESROLL. That's a list there are many lists that were recorded of Native American people when they were trying to, I think, break down the tribes, and they were putting them on reservations, and they were taking names and kind of like a census of the Native American population, and they're putting them in these horrible reservations. And if you can find a relative, a tracer your history back to one of these people on these lists, then you have proof that you are part of that tribe. And the names that are on some of the Choctaw rolls, or prominent names in Choctaw history are Gee, Gee, and Wilson that I have found. There's a lot of the Native American names were converted to typical white sounding or English sounding type of names, and they weren't spelled correctly. It was basically done at a table by hand. The Native American family would walk up, and the person behind the counter was, or behind the table was, or at the counter, whatever, was just handwriting names and just sometimes making up a name just for that person because they didn't know. Some of the Native Americans didn't speak any English at all, and so it was very confusing sometimes, and a lot of people got renamed with a white name. And Gee is the name of some well-known Choctaw artists, and those are names that are in my family history. And so I kind of believed it because of that, because of those names, but I've never found any kind of connection whatsoever. So for the future, I'm not ever going to make any Native American claims in my history until or unless it is ever proven to me through DNA or a very clear historical link from a person, I don't know, from a Native American family or tribe or something like that, that can verify, you know, any of my ancestors are connected through bloodlines to their ancestors. So that I'll just, you know, put that out of my mind. And you know, the science of DNA has made it very clear now to make sure that I'm just so happy that, you know, DNA is available to very, very clearly. It's not exact. It is not exact, but it can clearly, you know, clear up a lot of things as far as your ancestry or who your parents are if you're adopted or something like that. So it's one of the most, I mean, prolific, best scientific discoveries ever. And the process is getting better and more, there's more and more that's being developed in DNA technology and science. It just takes time, and more people, the more people that get their DNA tested, the bigger the database will be. And a lot of Native American tribes don't like to do that because they have a, you know, very strong, proud connection to their tribe. And I think that it makes them feel like if they're not 100%, if this science, you know, comes up with numbers that aren't 100%, you know, I think it takes away from their feelings of belonging, you know, absolutely belonging to their tribe. And I can understand that. I can understand that 100%. And so for the future, like I said, I'm not going to make any Native American claims anymore because I don't, you know, I believed everything I was told when I was growing up. And that story, when I found it, I found the same story that my grandmother told to me as a child. Like 35, 40 years later, I was looking at Ancestry.com, and one of the people with an account on there, you can put stories, you can put family history, pictures. If you don't know about Ancestry.com, you can put whole bloodlines, whole family trees, stuff like that. And you can connect and make matches and stuff, just all kinds of things you can do with Ancestry.com. Well, I found that same exact story, and there wasn't hardly any detail that was changed. So that really, really solidified to me that, okay, I believed everything was true. I always had a hint of doubt, you know, because a lot of people, so many people claim, oh, I'm part Native American, and it's all, 90% of it is Cherokee, which I'm not. I always claimed Choctaw and Seminole, and there's a reason for Seminole. My grandfather, my grandmother's husband, said that he was part Seminole Indian. And he told my mom that. My mom, her brother, and her sister from that my grandmother was married 3 times. And the brothers and sisters from that grandfather, my grandmother was widowed twice. And then the 3rd husband that she married is the father of my mother, my uncle, and my aunt. And they all have dark hair, dark eyes, and they're white, but they are the type of white people. I'm very white. You can see my pale face. But my mother had like a tinge of tan, natural tan, I guess you could say, although she was white. And in the summertime, she could get very, very dark. And I can get very, very dark, extremely dark, and so can my sisters. So that was one of the reasons why, you know, I had no reason not to believe that as a child. But now as an adult, and I know the controversy of, you know, everybody claiming that they're part Native American and all that, and I didn't like, when I was becoming more educated about it, I felt uncomfortable telling people that, you know. And now that, I mean, I can't explain the story that I found. I can't explain that, but the DNA test that I took that had no indication that I was from North America, that I had any ancestors from North America. It was all from, well, Norway and the UK and parts of Europe. So I'm going to go by science, and that's what I'm just always going to go by that. Okay. And I was going to touch on me telling my sisters, you know, that we're like more than 1/3 Norwegian and Viking history and all this, and from Viking stock, and they were very excited. And my sister told me, well, that explains a lot. She texted that to me, which I don't know, I guess whatever she meant by that. But I have always had a fascination with swords and archery, and now the axe throwing has come around as a sport or a hobby. I'm very interested in that. I just, like, when I first found out about it, it's like, oh, I want to do that so bad. And I have always been obsessed with Highlander. It was a TV series and a movie, or several movies were made out of Highlander, and I was obsessed with that show. I saw every single movie, every single episode of that series, and I loved it. And I don't know, I guess it was in my blood, and I felt it. And so in the future, me and my sisters, in the far, far, far future, me and my sisters are planning a trip to Norway and traveling through the UK, maybe going to Sweden, who knows, France, or parts of Europe, northwestern Europe, whatever. And it will be years before we do that. But both of my sisters were very excited about that. And I'm going to try to work on, well, the 23% from the English and the Northwest European percentage that wasn't broken down. I'm planning on taking a 23andMe test. And there was another company, I think, that has the ability to break down the percentages a little bit better, which I can't remember which one it was. I had a list of about 10 of them that I told in the other video. And, well, there was a couple of them that I was thinking of that I had kind of read up on a little bit, but I need to do more research on those companies. And my sister's son, one of her sons, took a test from 23andMe, and he had, I can't really remember at the time, but Congolese and I want to say maybe Nigerian. I can't remember. I don't remember what she said, but that was a little a little different. But it didn't come from this side because we didn't have any, it did not come from her ancestry. We think it came from her son's father, and they're not married, and he has no contact, so there's really no way to test the father. So that was a little bit different than us. Very different. And I believe in embracing every part of your heritage, no matter what it is, where you come from, or anything. And I think it's very it gives you a sense of, of thinking about a lot of the things that you, maybe traits, and like I said in the video before, they can actually test for well, traits. I don't know, that's there's some question as whether traits are actually in humans are actually, passed down. But there's a lot of twins, identical twins, that were split up at birth, that didn't know each other, didn't even know that they had twins, and were reconnected later, that had, some of the exact same likes and dislikes for food, or just idiosyncrasies, that they matched up completely. So sometimes traits can be inherited, I believe. That would be, I don't know, debatable, I guess, for some people. And I think sometimes even if it's not exactly scientific, it's just kind of, if you have that trait that's connected to that background, then it just makes you a little bit more excited, or thinking that the reason you like it is, it's inherent in you. So I don't know. I'm probably gonna, and I've always wanted to collect swords. I've had this thing about swords ever since I saw the Highlander movies, and I think they're beautiful. They're, very ornate, and it's just such an art to be able to craft a sword, out of metal, the way it is folded over and over and over and over to make a sharp edge. And I just have fascination with that. And probably in the future now I'll have a reason for, if I do start collecting some, or and archery. I've always wanted to do archery, and I really plan on doing that. Actually, a few weeks ago I was at Walmart, and they had some of their archery equipment on sale for like 75 or 80% off, and I was like, it's really not in my budget, I really shouldn't buy it, but I was like really so close to buying it. But I wanted the best one, the most expensive one, the heavy duty one, which was the most, the most expensive one. And then I decided, no, it's not in my budget, I'll just wait. And but I came this close to buying it. Okay, well, thank you for coming to my video, and I'll see y'all later. Thank you.